Kevin, welcome to the Readathon.
The Readathon.
For today, it is June 12th, and we had a banger day today in the Karen Read trial. And I don't want to diminish the seriousness of this murder trial, but today honestly was a unbelievable day full of incredible moments in this trial. Today we had the cross-examination of Trooper Michael Proctor.
And remind us who Michael Proctor is.
Trooper Proctor is the lead investigator in the Karen Read case. And he is the one that is being investigated. He's a subject of an internal investigation by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
That we didn't previously know a lot about, right?
We still don't know anything about it because it's an internal matter, an HR matter that they won't disclose what case, why he's being investigated. We may have gotten some hints about that today or maybe not. And I'm just going to talk about it. He's been accused of not being a good faith actor in the investigation. He's been accused of having inappropriate communications with people in the case. He's been accused of maybe not being, fully transparent about those things in the past. And today he was cross-examined by Karen Read's attorney, Alan Jackson. So, can I just say one thing that is superficial and catty?
Do it.
I hate to comment on looks, but Trooper Proctor does not mind commenting on looks, as you will hear. So I just want to say this.
Okay.
Trooper Michael Proctor looks more like a thumb than anyone I've ever seen in my entire life. Look at this man. He looks like a thumb.
Oh, looks like a thumb.
Okay, so now that I have that out of the way, and I wouldn't say that except for the things that he said today, I just wanted to get my lick in. So I just want to say also that at the end of the day, we did hear some direct examination of another cop named Brian Tully. Mm-hmm. Very memorable name for me. It's also the name of someone in my family. But Brian Tully, I'm not going to get into his very short direct examination today. I'm going to save that for our next update because I just want to stick with this Proctor stuff today because it's the meat of what happened today. We only got cross-examination of Proctor today, and boy, was it a day. So, first thing I want to talk about, Trooper Proctor, remember I told you about those text messages he was sending to his friend group?
Mm-hmm.
So his text messages to his friends and other people began 16 hours after he started investigating this case, okay?
Okay.
And Proctor told Jackson on cross that, quote, he did not anticipate the texts becoming public when he sent them.
Of course not.
This is actually important later because he says shortly after that, when he's asked what his definition of integrity is, it's, quote, doing the right thing when no one is looking. So doing the right thing when no one is looking is his definition of integrity. However, he admits he sent unethical texts that he did not think would become public, okay? So a few things happened with these texts. He texted his friends that she hit him with her car, right after the case happened.
Okay.
He said, that he, asked a supervisor, that his supervisor thought O'Keefe may have been beaten. He says, he didn't know what they had, yada, yada, yada. He wrote that O'Keefe was, quote, banged up. And basically, he said that she did it basically right away in these texts. Mm-hmm. Jackson said, was it cut and dried in your mind at that point? And he says, yes. This is 16 hours later.
Okay.
Some of the texts with friends are pretty gross. One of his friends said, you guys are out to make it cut and dry since the matter involved police officers. Another friend wrote, something stinks. Proctor replied, yeah, and some serious charges will be brought on the girl. I remember, this is hours later.
Right, okay.
Somebody else wrote, the way you're going to make it cut and dry, just pin it on the girl.
Just pin it on the girl.
Right. And then absolutely not, Proctor said, adding that the authorities planned to follow facts and evidence. This is what he said in court, okay? And then another friend texted, I can only imagine what BPD internal affairs are going to try to get out there. And Proctor said, I wasn't sure how to interpret that one, all right? Mm-hmm. When another friend asked if Karen Read was hot, Proctor said,
fucking friends.
Exactly. Proctor texted that, that Brian, who owned the house, didn't do anything wrong. Karen Read is a whack job. And he called her the C word at that point. And that Brian Alpert didn't do anything wrong. And that was 16 hours after the investigation. Jackson just kept pointing out this is 16 hours later. He texted that Karen Reed is a babe with a weird Fall River accent who has no ass. One of his friends noted that she's then not newsworthy.
Jesus.
And he also said that Karen Reed has a, quote, leaky balloon knot.
Because she has Crohn's disease. That's, yeah, okay.
Correct. So these are some
Lovely.
disgusting texts. And this is shortly before he is, says that he defines integrity as, quote, doing the right thing when no one is looking. Now, there are some situations where I believe Proctor was caught in straight up perjury on the stand or potentially caught in perjury on the stand today. So I'm going to tell you about one that is potential and then put a pin in this because it's important later. All right. Jackson asked Proctor, about whether or not he testified earlier that he didn't know any members of the Albert or McCabe families. All right.
And Albert is the
homeowner, and,
police officer homeowner where the party happened. Where,
right, but there are other Alberts involved. Also, Albert's brother and sister-in-law live down the street.
Okay.
This will come in up later. Okay. So and one of Albert's brother was also at the home at the time, Chris Albert.
Is it Albert or Alpert with a P?
Albert
with a B. Okay.
Yeah. So Proctor testified on Monday that he knew Chris Albert, the brother. And he knew Chris Albert's wife and son. And what he said was that he couldn't remember what he had said during the earlier proceeding, what he had testified to about whether or not he knew any Alberts. Now, the earlier proceeding is definitely the federal grand jury thing.
Yeah.
So I believe that...
I don't remember what lie I told.
Jackson is literally, when people say they can't remember, every time he talks about an earlier proceeding, he's talking about this grand jury thing, okay?
Right. And by the way, can we just put the note in why they can't bring it in? Is that the judge would not let the defense enter the transcripts from the federal grand jury as evidence in this case.
Right.
However, he left the door open for the defense to use any of the information that's connected to that.
So he can ask them questions. So basically, Jackson at this point says that Proctor lied in the previous testimony.
Okay.
All right. And he just says that in court. And Proctor then says, Brian and Nicole Albert are the homeowners at Fairview, okay? Chris is Brian's brother and Julie is Brian's brother's wife. Colin is their son. Proctor says, no, I knew Chris, Julie, and Colin, but not Brian and Nicole. So basically he's saying he knew Chris and Julie and Colin. Chris, Julie, and Colin are important witnesses in this case. Chris and Julie were at the Waterfall Bar that night, right?
Okay.
We know that Colin was at the house at some point that night. So my question is, why doesn't this conflict him out of the case, period? Like, that's a big question I have. So even if these are the only Alberts he knows, that should conflict him out. But put a pin in it because he says, these are the Alberts I know. All right? That is important. Comes up later. So second big thing that happened today, Proctor has a sister. His sister, is very good friends with Julie Albert, the sister-in-law of the homeowner, Brian Albert. Okay?
Okay.
Proctor begins texting and telling his sister all about the case. And Julie Albert is constantly communicating with Proctor's sister about the case. Proctor's sister talks constantly with Julie Albert, including before she is questioned about the case.
Okay.
Julie Albert in her testimony said that she barely ever talked to Proctor's sister. They actually talked 67 times in 7 months, including 3 times in one day. They met. Her name is Courtney Proctor. She met with Julie before her interview with Proctor. They talked constantly. And at one point, Proctor told his sister by a text, when she was asking about whether or not there's a homicide investigation, quote, "Don't say a word to anyone." So he knew it was wrong, that he was telling his sister all these details.
Yeah.
And basically at one point, I guess Julie Albert wanted to buy him a gift. She's so happy that he's in charge of the case. She's so proud of him. And he says, no, get Elizabeth one. That's his wife. So
his wife. Okay.
He's basically saying Julie Albert can get a thank you gift, but not for me. Get one for my wife. So Jackson asked Proctor at that point if he's using his sister as an intermediary between himself and Julie Albert. He says no. So Julie Albert is Colin Albert's mother. You might remember that Colin Albert is the nephew that the defense is asserting was involved maybe in this fight with John O'Keefe that led to his injuries that caused his death. Okay?
Yeah.
Colin Albert testified that he left before O'Keefe even got there. But Colin Albert is the one who has the cuts on his hand, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Proctor told Jackson that he knew that Colin Albert had been there, but that he left. He said that he left before he arrived. So in October of 2022, Proctor interviewed Julie Nagel, who is one of the friends, and about who was at the house. And in the handwritten notes from that interview, he listed people in the house, including Colin Albert, as being there. And in his report, he left Colin's name out. So basically, he had a couple of opportunities to put Colin at the house, and a couple of times he actually declined in reports to place him there. So that's, kind of significant. He never tried to verify Colin's story, or seemed to not try to verify Colin's story. So there's a couple of things that happened. He never sought video surveillance footage that had, Colin's stated alibi on it. He never checked the Life 360 data that would have proven that he was picked up the time that he said he was picked up. He did not retrieve any video where he could have been found. He also, by the way, asked the Canton police if there were surveillance cameras near the Fairview Road home. He knew the Canton police, by the way, were recused from this case, and he still asked them for help from this case. Another thing I learned today was that there was a plow driver who said that he never saw a body on the front lawn of the Alberts home when he drove by to plow. And apparently Proctor interviewed him, but he can't remember when that interview happened.
Who can't remember?
Proctor
can't remember.
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically he's asked all these direct questions, and it's I can't remember. A lot of unremembering from a cop who says that he
was a lead investigator.
Had a perfect investigation. Right. Huge thing I heard today that I have not heard before. Maybe others have. I have not. And I don't know where this information came from, perhaps from the federal investigation or somewhere else. Is there a text message from Higgins, remember the ATF agent, to O'Keefe? Proctor was asked if Brian Higgins sent John O'Keefe a text after they left the Waterfall Bar, coaxing him to the Fairview house. He said he didn't recall if that text existed or not. Okay?
Okay.
A pretty important thing to not recall.
Right.
Apparently there's video footage, I've heard this, from the Waterfall Bar of Higgins and Brian Albert, quote, play fighting.
Okay.
And he says he interprets those fighting stances as playful fighting. So there's video of them at this bar sparring. And he's decided that that's play fighting. All right?
All right.
Yeah.
Suspicious.
Yep.
All right. He
never got a warrant to search Higgins' phone. And he was not aware of a call between Higgins and Brian Albert before Reed discovered O'Keefe's body. So Higgins was one of the people who, quote, butt dialed
okay.
Brian Albert's phone. So that happened. He insulted the medical examiner, called her a whack job. Fun fact in a text. He was very displeased that the medical examiner found the manner of death undetermined rather than a homicide. And he said, quote, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter to my office whether or not the medical examiner found the manner of death homicide or not. It doesn't matter to the investigation. Because, it doesn't matter what the medical examiner thinks, right?
Because we're going to get what we want. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
He testified in February of 2024, again at that proceeding, that, quote, either way, Ms. Reed was going to be charged, so he didn't care about what the medical examiner says. And he didn't deny having testified to that. All right?
Okay.
All right. There's another Albert, Kevin Albert.
All right.
He's a cop.
All right. Yeah. Okay.
He's Brian Albert's brother. And what I learned today is that Proctor is his fucking drinking buddy.
Okay.
Remember, earlier in this testimony, he says the Alberts he knew were the other ones, not this guy, Kevin Albert. So he did initially ask Kevin Albert, who's a Canton cop. Remember, the Canton police officers are recused from this investigation. He asked him for help, asking him if there's a conference room that they could use at the Canton police station to interview witnesses, right? So Kevin was the one enlisted to help with that. Kevin Albert, Brian Albert's fucking brother, was asked to help him with this investigation by offering police resources for interviews, all right?
Okay.
So, he's asked if he's concerned. Will Kevin use the access potentially to videos from these interviews to improperly update Brian Albert, Proctor says, no, because we don't record our interviews. So I didn't think that was going to be a problem. So Proctor says that he and Kevin Albert had previously worked a cold case together, but, we socialized and drank together on several occasions, but I quote, don't consider that a relationship. So basically he said he didn't know him. He doesn't consider drinking and socializing together a relationship. All right. So here we go. On July 19th, 2022, this is months after the event, okay? The two of you got so drunk that Kevin Albert left his badge in Proctor's cruiser and couldn't find his gun the next day. Proctor said, this is according to the Boston Globe, that he didn't recall their level of intoxication, but conceded that he found Albert's badge in his cruiser the next day and texted him. Albert responded, quote, did I take my gun, and added a wince emoji. Jackson said, quote, which means you were drinking and driving in your cruiser, right? Proctor said the men had been working on a case in Cape Cod, stopped for dinner and had a few beers. Kevin Albert later texted that he was hungover and would have had a couple more drinks that night to, quote, make me feel good. This is fucking Brian Albert's brother, Kevin Albert. Okay?
Okay.
So that's another big thing. All right, I know this is a lot, but it's something that you probably want to hear what he had to say about.
Okay.
The Sally Port video. You want to hear what he had to say about the Sally Port discrepancies?
Please, yes.
Remember yesterday I talked about that big, more than an hour discrepancy between when he said he picked up the car and when the car was actually logged in to that? Mm-hmm. He says it was a typo.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, it's just a typo, sir. That's what he had to say about it. And he says he doesn't understand about the missing video of the car arriving at the Sally Port. Jackson asked Proctor, if there are videos being withheld from the defense, whether or not he withheld any videos from the defense. He says he did not. He says he did not withhold any videos from the defense. He says that he was the one who turned over one video from the interior of the garage. He says that if a clip is missing of the precise time that the SUV was delivered, and Proctor said, guess what he said?
What?
I don't recall. Okay. Let's get to the ring footage, shall we?
Okay.
And he does acknowledge that is him in the video, by the way.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Let's get to the ring footage. So, there's been a big question about who could access the ring footage, who couldn't access the ring footage. We've heard from the prosecution that, Karen Reed could have accessed the ring footage. Guess who had access to O'Keefe's ring account via his own cell phone?
O'Keefe's?
Trooper Proctor had access to O'Keefe's ring account on his own cell phone.
Okay.
He installed the app and he had access to O'Keefe's ring account on his cell phone. He testified to that on the stand today.
So he got the app after O'Keefe was dead?
Mm-hmm.
And as part of his investigation, he got O'Keefe's credentials and logged in as him and looked at the... Okay.
Correct.
Okay. But we also know that there are ring... videos that
do not exist
because the alerts are there, but the videos are not.
That's a very strong theory. Yes.
Okay.
So he said that he did not, absolutely not, delete any ring videos via that account. He said he wrote a report on the ring video footage off of his notes. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
He said. So Jackson actually has another trooper's notes on ring footage. All right.
Okay.
He gives Proctor that notes, and the other trooper's notes say at 12:41 a.m., I think she arrived home.
Okay.
Proctor wrote a report on June 1st, 2022, also. And Proctor's report makes no mention of Reed arriving at home at 12:41 a.m., even though the other trooper said that she had arrived at home at 12:41 a.m. And Proctor said, quote, "It's something I've tried to find through Ring for months." Jackson said, "There's no video at 12:41, is there?" "No, there isn't," Proctor said. So, there's a whole thing. Proctor texted his sister that he hoped Reed would kill herself. Proctor keeps asserting, "We followed the facts of the evidence." He got emotional. Proctor, called her the C word. His testimony ends basically by Jackson saying, like, "You should be ashamed of yourself," and the judge striking the comment. A lot of fucking fireworks in this testimony today, this cross-examination.
And does the cross-examination continue tomorrow?
No, the cross-examination is over.
Oh, okay.
There's a little bit of redirect and then a little bit of cross-direct. I think I gave you like the spiciest highlights.
Okay.
But things that we learned today that, in my opinion, should end Proctor's career.
This was drunk. Did I leave? Guy lost his fucking gun.
He was drunk driving in his own cruiser with another cop. And the other cop lost his badge and maybe his gun in that cruiser. Isn't that's enough, right? That should be enough.
Yeah.
He admitted on the stand that he and another cop were drunk driving after drinking while working a case in a cruiser. That should be enough.
But we do, yes, sure. And what is it that we know about investigations involving Proctor outside of this criminal trial? We know. What do we know? We know that, we know that there is an HR matter within the.
We know there's an internal investigation by the Commonwealth into something involving Proctor.
Okay, and we know that there is a federal grand jury looking at
the investigation into the Karen
investigation, which is the lead up, and that's separate.
And that he testified in front of that grand jury.
And so the defense cannot get what that comment that what the investigation into Proctor is that the state is doing, because they say that it's a
private personnel matter. Yes, because you know how that works.
Well, I would, if they haven't opened up one to discuss the badge and gun and drunk driving in the cruiser, then they should be doing that now.
But also, I believe that when he says, "These three Alberts are the Alberts I know," when clearly he also knows Kevin Albert, Brian's other brother, has investigated cases with him, is his drinking buddy, hangs out with him. He has asked him for help.
Has the closest relationship with, probably.
Yeah,
right?
he's asking him for help with police resources. Police, by the way, who were recused. He fucking knows Kevin Albert. In my opinion, he just perjured himself in front of us today.
Yeah.
Like, that is like, when New Hampshire be like Lori list stuff, like that is like, he just perjured himself today. He was texting his friends that this was an open and shut case and that he had decided. He actually said on the stand today that what the medical examiner said didn't matter, that the evidence that, anybody else could have done it didn't matter. He never thought for a second that Brian Albert was involved, because everything at the scene told him that Karen did it. He made that decision immediately and never pursued any other line of inquiry. And that when there were opportunities to put other people at the scene, like Colin, he omitted him on purpose from reports because, he says, "I was told that Colin wasn't there." And this is the son of his friends, a kid that he knows. This trooper should not have been investigating in this case, period. I mean, that's a given. And the fact that the state is asserting that this investigation wasn't tainted in some way is crazy. And this is what happened on the stand today with this cross-examination, among other things. These are just some highlights to keep in mind. These are just highlights. There are other things that happened that were wild, but like, these were the things that stuck out to me as just being on their face. Like, this guy should, if he still has his job after this, people in Massachusetts should be writing fucking letters, in my opinion.
Yeah, I feel like he's not going to get a medal for this one. All right. Well, that was really great. So there's testimony again on Thursday, and can we expect another readout?
We'll definitely expect another readout. We're going to get some Brian Tully stuff tomorrow. Brian Tully is another investigator. He has a lot to do with videos, Sallyport stuff, other videos. And that should be interesting. I mean, Proctor could be recalled. We don't know. I do believe that he was devastating for the state. I know that people don't like it when we're hyperbolic about this. To me, hearing that he had access to the Ring app on his phone I was very surprised by that. I don't know if that's a thing people knew. I didn't know that. Hearing that him say, I don't recall, over and over and over again, things that a lead investigator of a case should know by rote. Hearing that he didn't recall things he testified to a couple of months ago to a federal fucking grand jury. Shocking. And hearing he is drinking brothers with Brian Albert's brother, who he didn't even mention when he said, these are the Alberts I know. Shocking. Anyway, that's my readathon for today. My God, it's great. Okay, so thank you so much for that. Thanks for listening to this Patreon bonus podcast. Rebecca's going to keep doing it until Kevin,
it's
I'm
over.
going to keep telling you about this as long as you'll tolerate it.
And I always will.
All right, thanks so much, babe.